What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So if you're interested in lowering your Durango, or if you've already lowered your Durango, you might want to stick around. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons of lowering your ride. Now, this can apply to really any vehicle, but specifically if you have a Durango or if you're planning on lowering Durango, these things are going to apply. And these are talking about my own personal experience with my ride as I've lowered my Durango for over 2 years now. Now, also we're talking about with lowering springs, because there are several ways you can lower your ride. You can use airbags or a lowering suspension kit. They have adjustable shocks to where you can lower your vehicle. And then they also have lowering springs. So that's what we're going to talk about in this case, using lowering springs to lower your vehicle, the pros and the cons. So now if you're new to the channel, go ahead and tap that subscribe button. Give the video a thumbs up. Stay tuned because we got more great content on the way. So now let's get into number one. The first pro, the look you get from lowering your ride. I mean, you can't beat it. And one of the main things is you don't have to add any additional parts when you use the lowering springs. These are from the iBot Pro Kit, and it's rated for a 0.7 drop in the front and 1.6 in the rear. But it came down a lot more as it settled over time. And my springs settled in fully within about, I would say about 2 months, because I drive the vehicle a lot. Now, in your ride, it may take you a lot longer if you drive it less. And you just break it in by just normal stop and go, uphill, downhill, accelerating, stopping, and you just normally break it in. But the look you get from lowering your ride, you can't beat it. I mean, you get that stance. It's not too low where you don't have any clearance issues, but you just get a nice profile. So that's the first thing. Number two, improve stability. With that lower center of gravity, your vehicle's naturally going to have more stability. And that goes for, cornering, when you're turning, if you're doing donuts, your vehicle is going to have more stability, and it's just a natural thing. And now here's a bonus. If you couple the lowering springs with a strut bar, and I'll show you which one I have in this case. So we have the double strut bar from Grocery Getter Racing. This provides added stability. Now, there are channels that have done research and surveys on if these things work. Does it improve cornering, roll, and all those things to test and see if these things really actually work, and they do. It definitely improves cornering. When you get that roll when you're cornering, your vehicle just kind of sways. Well, with the lowering springs coupled with the strut bar, it's just a major difference. It's like night and day. There's hardly a lot of rolling as I'm turning, or like if you're going around a long curve, you don't get that sway like you would if you didn't have the strut bar and the lowering springs. So again, that's a definite bonus. If you couple the lowering springs with a strut bar, you're going to have added stability. And again, there is proven research that the strut bar definitely improves your cornering, your rolling. So in my case, I like it. It's worth the investment. Number three, the feel you get after you lower your ride and it's fully broke in. It doesn't feel like an SUV. It actually drives more like a car with that lower stance. And once you get all the stability, it just feels different. It feels more comfortable. Your handling, the cornering, everything about it, it just improves. So that's number three. Number four, it's easier to work under the hood. If you're a shorter guy, having that vehicle lowered a few inches while you're working under the hood is definitely going to make a big improvement as far as your comfort, while you're working under the hood. It really makes a big difference. Just those couple inches when you're working under the hood versus lowered and being not lowered. So again, that's number four. And number five, the fifth pro of lowering your ride is that it's budget friendly if you go with the lowering springs. Now, if you go with airbags, you're going to end up paying thousands of dollars. And also there's a lot of maintenance involved with airbags. If you go with adjustable shocks, there's maintenance as well with that, and then you have to go in there and adjust them. But with the springs, not only are they budget friendly, but there's zero maintenance. Once you install them, you don't have to do anything. So those are the 5 pros of lowering your Durango. Now let's talk about the cons. Now there's only a few cons, which is good if you're planning on lowering your Durango, or if you're worried, being that you've already lowered your Durango. So the first con is you may bottom out from time to time. With that lowered stance in the front, you have to watch the terrain you go over, because your front end may bottom out, but also you may feel your shocks bottoming out on your bump stop when you're going over certain terrains. I mean, that's not a big con. I have the Eibach bump stops in the front. They're softer bump stops, so it makes it a lot more comfortable if you were to bottom out. And so that's just what you have to expect when you lower your ride. It's going to be lower, particularly in the front end. It's going to be a lot lower, so you have to be aware of when you're going over certain terrains, you got to be cautious of bottoming out. And also your shocks may bottom out into your bump stop. You may feel that from time to time. You may even hear it from time to time. The second con is, with your vehicle being lowered, now if you're doing work under your vehicle, it's going to be tougher to get a jack under there. So I use the low profile jacks. The rear is not really that bad, because you got that end that comes up, so you can still get under there pretty easily. But you're definitely going to need a low profile jack if you're planning on jacking up the front end. And that's not a real big deal. You can still get under it and jack it up. But again, it is a con. Now let's get into the third con. And this is probably the biggest con, and that is decreased tow capacity. Because you have to swap out your load leveling shocks when you lower your ride on the Durango. If you have the load leveling shocks, you have to swap them out with a more regular shock. It doesn't have to be a Mopar shock, but it has to be a non-load leveling shock. And once you remove the non-load leveling shocks to a normal shock, you lose tow capacity, because the load leveling shocks can handle a much greater load. So when you put the normal shocks in, I would not recommend trying to tow 7,000 pounds. You're going to bust your shocks up. I don't tow with this vehicle, so it's fine in my case, but I know I still can tow. But I wouldn't attempt to tow 7,000 pounds. I would feel more comfortable with around the 4,000 pound range. But that definitely is a con, and I think that's the biggest one, is that you will lose that tow capacity, decrease tow capacity. And so those are just 3 cons, and the pros far outweigh the cons, in my opinion. So I hope this video helped. If you're planning on lowering your ride, or if you already have your ride lowered, give the video a thumbs up. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. We got more great content on the way. I will see you guys in the next video. Alex Life signing off.